Smells great. It's crisped up quite.
The lovely salty waters are still where fleets of boats once had their fill.
I spent a fair amount of time hanging around Inverness. All small boat sailors have to wait for weather windows, and the smaller the boat, the more picky you have to be. While it was raining, the marina Wi-Fi beamed international nonsense at me, but between squalls I snatched every moment, generally bimbling around town on the folder. Inverness is the eastern end of the Caledonian Canal. Not much of the 60-mile shortcut across the middle of Scotland is man-made. Most of the trip to Fort William is along the fabulous string of naturally formed deep-water locks that delineate the geologically sprinting fault line that is the Great Glen. Loch Lochy, Loch Oich, Loch Ness and Loch Dochfor are now linked by a beautifully engineered, typically Telford string of diggings, swing bridges and 29 man-made ship locks capable of handling sailing vessels of up to 150 feet. Built with the encouragement of the military and with government money. The canal was really a response to the Jacobite unpleasantness and subsequent land clearances. The canal formed a vital link between the mighty British guns, garrisons and military stockpiles of Fort William in the west and Fort George in the east. Names were always important when it comes to armies of occupation. It was, almost as a byproduct, a fantastic spur to trade between the coasts of Scotland. At one time, the journey from Inverness to the Clyde had involved a 450-mile northerly, rock-strewn slog around the top of the mainland, past Cape Wrath by way of the Pentland Firth. But by ducking through the canal, the journey from one side of Scotland to the other shrinks to a pussycat 60 miles of well-sheltered dawdling. Mind you, by using the canal you miss out some fabulous sailing, so I've never been through it, and doubt that I ever will. Between showers, Inverness is a wonderful place to explore by old bloke on wobbly Halford's folder. Although all this city stuff can feel a bit of a faceful after the tranquil reaches of the wider Moray that I'd left behind me. A quarter of all Highlanders now live around Inverness. It's a proper city and the 5th best place in Britain to live, however they work that one out. Probably the fact that it has good walking, good sailing and has been hosed with money by the oil industry might have helped to shove it up the rankings a little. The gush of oil money is now waning, with any luck forever, but there are still jobs for big blokes with their big machines because in the yard beside the Inverness Marina is a place where they marshal wind turbines. I've never fully understood the antipathy to wind farms I often hear expressed by my fellow sailors. I think they're generally a good thing. At sea, they are a wonderful wildlife refuge where the dredgers and trawlers are forced to leave the seabed alone. They are generally put out of sight over the horizon. Far better out there than strung along mountain ridges and lowland skylines. Eventually there comes a day when we have a good flood tide at the right time. The weather forecast, though, is still a bit of a curate's egg. It still amazes me how the tides must have dictated the rhythm of the lives of the ferrymen who shuttled back and forth across the Narrows in the days before steam and bridges. Now that all remains of a once busy Firth terminus is a ramp and a pub, and neither are very busy. That afternoon I found myself where the Bewley starts thinking about becoming a river. It is for me a magical place of mudflats and seabirds and winding creeks. I feel as at home here as I do on the Walton backwaters, 400 miles to the south.
This is about an hour after low tide, so the tide is flooding now. I'm kind of poking around trying to find the channel. Oh, we're moving again now. I've been keep on going aground. Don't really know where the channel is. I assume it's close to this rather steep piece of bank here. But after that, I've no idea where it goes.
I drifted around waiting for the water to rise a little. The light was sad and thin. Then, halfway through a tack, the sun put in an appearance. The riverine world of natural mud sculptures drifted past, their elegant curves illuminated by that fabulously pure Scottish evening sunlight. The last hour of that last lovely evening as a shallow sailor with Katie in Scotland was spent revelling in the twists and turns of the Bewley. Dawn broke with a nasty squall, so I went back to bed, and by the time the tea had brewed, the sun was out. I love the vicissitudes of upriver sailing. Surging along like a train 1 second, then barely making steerage through the tide. And all the while the reeds and the rose bay are sighing at you, bending to the clean-smelling wind off the mountains. Powerful sudden gusts can be seen and then heard in the trees overhead. I'm pleased I have these shots of my last day on the Moray. I'd hate to forget this perfect day. I shall miss eastern Scotland greatly. It's been a wonderful summer.
The wind's going to come on the nose a bit now. Get around this next bend.
The only threat up here is a double set of overhead three-phase cables. I've done the maths again and again, but the consequences of getting it wrong are so dire that I mither mightily every time I pass under them.
Well, that's far enough up for me. I could go further on a spring tide, but right now that is just running over the rocks, and I need a certain time to get out of here. These banks of stones along the river.
Eventually, an hour before high water, I went up as far as I dared, and Katie's keels finally grounded on the shingle. I stepped ashore. Took 3 snaps and then climbed quickly back aboard. Getting back down with the ebb tide will be a bit of a race if I'm to get over the shallows where this fine little river grows into a handsome firth. What a wonderful, surging, sunny sail it was back down the Bewley. That mountain wind was picking herself up. The ebb was now really with me. I was hoping to ride it nearly all the way back to Nairn. The sad thing is, of course, with all these things, these places, will I ever come back again? Who knows? Who knows? The speed I'm going around the UK, the chances are probably not. So, you know, this is my last time sailing on the Moray Firth. Great harbours, great sailing waters, sheltered. You know, the prevailing winds are from the west, so it doesn't really get it very often. And if it does, there are loads of places you can go and hide. So, about an hour back to Nairn. Pack up tonight and then drive home Friday. Live the moment though. And the moment is I'm sailing on a great day in a great boat in a great place. I'll spare you the long-filmed sequence of loading and driving. Just a few snaps, because towing a 22-footer is a stressful affair. Not a task to be lightly undertaken by a 60-year-old in a borrowed car.